Let's talk food and wine in Tonia's kitchen. Have a seat at the table. Here is Tonia King.
Joining me today is author Emmanuel LaRoche. Today we're talking about his brand new book, A Taste of Madagascar. Thank you for joining me, Emmanuel.
Sonia, thank you very much for having me. It's a
What
pleasure
a
to be on your show.
beautiful book, Culinary Riches of the Red Island. Tell me a little bit about yourself and why you did this book.
Yeah, so I am French and American. You can tell probably from the accent that even if I live in Jersey, I do not have the Jersey accent.
Right, right.
But I've been in the US now for 23 years, and the company I work for transferred me here, and I'm in charge of marketing for a company that manufacture natural extracts and ingredients for the food and the beverage industry. And in my role, obviously, I have to promote, products from the portfolio, and we love to be vertically integrated in some ingredients that are important for the food and the beverage industry. And of course, vanilla is the queen of spice, for
Of course.
everything related to ice cream and desserts and bakery and so on.
Yeah, and that's the first
80
thing I think of, by the way. When I
Exactly.
see
Yeah.
Madagascar, there's nothing better than vanilla.
Exactly. At least that's good because you
Vanilla
think and you
beans.
connect Madagascar with vanilla. A lot of people that I talked to when I started writing the book, and they said, "Oh, you're writing about the movie?" And I'm like, "What?" And they said, "Oh, yes, I know what you mean. No, but it's an island. It's a true country." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, it does exist." Oh, and but anyhow, so this vanilla story, because Madagascar produced 80% of the global vanilla production, in 2022, I took three culinary stars from the US to the island closer to the source of vanilla. So it was Elizabeth Faulkner, chef Michael Gulotta from New Orleans, and then mixologist Shannon Tibet, who was at that time or just finished being like the beverage director of Death and Company in New York. So that was my first trip. So that's the connection. And then I went there for vanilla, and then I discovered a lot of other ingredients on the island that chefs around the world are using in their kitchen, and people have no idea it's coming from the island. So, for instance, pink peppercorn, for instance, an endemic wild black pepper that only grows on the island.
Wow.
There is caviar as well, and I was like, "What? Caviar in Madagascar?"
Right.
So I was like, okay, I cannot keep that to myself. I need to really share all those discoveries, with a larger audience. And that's how, on my way back on my first trip, I had time to think about it because the journey is quite long. It's 8 hours from Antananarivo, which is the capital of Madagascar, to Paris, and it's 8 hours from Paris to New York. So that trip, I started to think, oh, maybe I have an idea for my second book. So that's how the whole, idea of the book started.
In the book, you go through a lot of what we can find in Madagascar. I was fascinated by the heart of the global vanilla production, looking at all these vanilla beans just on screens. And it's interesting how it is harvested and produced. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the first, I think, maybe fact that people do not know about is that the flowers that are so vanilla is an orchid, it's a vine, an orchid,
Yeah.
and it produces vanilla beans, but they have to be or each flower has to be hand pollinated to produce a bean. The reason is that vanilla is originally from Mexico, and in Mexico, there's a little insect that really pollinate, the flower, like most of
Right.
flowers.
Right.
But
Right.
then when French people long time ago took those vine and tried to replicate the culture, around the tropics or the equator around the world, they ended up in La Réunion, which is a little island north of Madagascar, and so it grew, but it never produced vanilla beans. And in fact, the insect never survived outside of Mexico. So all the vanilla beans produced outside of Mexico has to be hand pollinated. So that was like the first experience as well, because when we met with the vanilla farmers, they taught us how to pollinate the flower because we were during the blooming season, which is in September, October. So that was really a very interesting, step. And then there's, after the then pollination, then there's the production obviously of the green beans, and then the green beans then needs to be cured and to really synthesize within, naturally, within the beans. That's why they turn brown. Then, the vanillin, which is the main component that gives this great taste that we know and enjoy, then it has to be dry, and sorted and put into boxes and shipped. So 90% of the production of the beans in Madagascar is exported. So it's not part of their culture from a culinary standpoint. When we ask the farmers, so what do we do with vanilla? And they looked at us. There was kind of a pause, looked at us if we had three heads, and they were like, what do you mean? We don't. And we are, what? They said, no, we don't. It's money, it's currency.
Right.
And this is really, money for our family. So a very interesting craft. People have no idea, what it takes to grow vanilla and the whole process that I describe, in the book. And it's said that, the vanilla bean that you have in your kitchen, there's about 40 hands in Madagascar that have really touched that bean from the hand pollination to the packaging.
It sounds like, of course, a very time-consuming job, and it reminds me of like saffron.
Sure.
Look what they have to do to harvest saffron, right?
Absolutely. So that's a very good example, and Chef Elizabeth Faulkner, in fact, mentioned it and made that correlation, with saffron. But what she highlighted is that, where saffron grew is that there is a culture of saffron and the people are using saffron and
Right.
and you can smell saffron everywhere. She was expecting the same thing when it comes to vanilla. After we landed like in the street of like at Antananarivo in the capital, she was expecting to smell vanilla everywhere, and you don't.
What I started using, which I absolutely love, is vanilla bean paste. I always just thought, oh, vanilla extract, right? And I
Sure.
always try to buy the most organic and original that I can.
Sure.
But vanilla bean paste, I don't know how they produce that, but I love it.
And it's good especially when you do ice cream. So
Ooh, I never thought about
when
that.
you do ice cream, usually it's good to blend a little bit of the paste with the extract, and so try it
Interesting.
next time you do it.
This is not officially a cookbook, but
Yeah.
you include some really interesting recipes. Would you be able to share one or two with us?
Sure, of course. Yes, you are correct to say it's not a cookbook. It's really a blend of like food writing with travelogue and celebration of the human dimension behind each of those ingredients, because I wanted
Correct.
to celebrate those individuals that are farmers, beekeepers, entrepreneurs that
Yes.
are giving back to the local community. So that was really the purpose of the book. But I wanted to illustrate each of those ingredients with recipes that very kindly the chef, either from Madagascar or from the US or from France, in fact, gave me to put in the book. So like the new generation of chefs that are really celebrating, chef and mixologists, sorry, that are celebrating the ingredients, from the island. So
Right. The
there's
flavors.
Chef Far. It's written Farah, but it's pronounced Far. And she is very famous over there. She's a young chef, and she is as well drive her motorcycle like all around the island to collect like the memory, the food memories, from like different villages and the regional aspect of Madagascar. And she has a fantastic Facebook page where she publish a lot of pictures and her adventures. So she's known for that. Anyhow, the recipe, it's called lemongrass fish skewers with combava zest. So
Ooh.
combava is, in fact, it's a lime, and so you can use a lime if obviously you're not going to have combava. But that's really something very easy to make.
How does she put it together?
So this is really the idea of of the fish skewer, which is based on like fish fillet that
Yep.
you clean and that you chop, and you mix that that fish with garlic and onion and the zest of the lime, and in fact you salt pepper obviously to taste, and then you really need it like in your hand. You do some little I would say bowl, like if you were doing meatballs, but
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
then and in fact what is interesting is that she cut like lemongrass stalks, and then into instead of like celeries, for instance, then with lemongrass, and then she shaped the fish paste into the bowl, and she put them into attached it at one extreme of the lemongrass stalk, and then she's going to fry that in a pan. Which is interesting is it's served with a mint lemon sauce, which is a green sauce because it contains cilantro and kale, and of course meal, basil, and so
Sounds
on.
delicious.
And it's very easy, very very easy to make, and it includes as well pink peppercorn. So which is, if people don't know, Madagascar is the second producer of pink peppercorn after Brazil.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's really a recipe which is easy to make.
Why is it called the Red Island?
Oh, good question. Yeah, it's that's something that you discover after you land there, that the soil is red because it contains laterite that is very high in iron, and when it oxidizes with the air, it's give that reddish color to the soil. So the island that was really green, unfortunately in some area it's more red because of the deforestation. But that's the reason why I call it like the Culinary Riches of the Red Island. Because that's
Interesting.
kind of the nickname of this island. Like,
Sure.
by the way, if people don't know, it's the fourth largest island on the planet. So
Oh, I
it's the
didn't know that.
Yeah, it's the size of Texas. So just for people to realize.
Interesting. Now, Emmanuel, how can we find you on social media and learn a little bit more about A Taste of Madagascar?
Yeah, so thank you for asking. So it's easy for the book. There's a landing page called atasteofmadagascar.com. But as well, you can find information about the book and my podcast called Flavors Unknown at, in fact, flavorsunknown.com for the website. And there's a tab for the book and a tab for the podcast. And then otherwise on social media, it's easy. It's Flavors Unknown on Instagram and
good.
TikTok and Facebook. And, for LinkedIn, it's under my name, obviously.
Well, I really appreciate you giving me some of your time today. And
no, thank you, Tanya, for having me. Really
absolutely. Just a pleasure to chat with you today. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you'll subscribe to this podcast as we continue to take you around the world of food and wine on Tonia's Kitchen.